My name is Shirley J. Browning, and I am 35 years old. I'm sitting in my lawyer's office right now, waiting for him to finish reviewing emergency custody paperwork. My kids are at my mom's house, safe and confused, but handling it better than I expected. My husband, Thomas, 33, is currently sitting in county lockup. Let me explain how we got here. 2 nights ago, Thursday evening, I came home from work and immediately knew something was wrong. Suitcases lined the hallway. Not mine. The kids. Their favorite toys, clothes, even their tablets carefully zipped inside like someone had planned this for a while. My daughter, Lily, 7, and my son, Jamie, 5, were sitting on the couch staring at the television without really watching it. Thomas walked out of our bedroom with another suitcase, didn't even look at me. "We need to talk," he said. "I'm done pretending this is working. I'm taking the kids to live with my girlfriend." Her name was Brianna, his gym friend, the one he swore was just helping him stay motivated, the one whose texts he always tilted his phone away from me to read, the one he met during late workouts that never seemed to make him healthier or happier, just more distant. "Where?" I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. He shrugged. "Her cousin has a rental property. Nice place. Good schools. About 4 hours north across the state line." My stomach dropped, but not for the reason he thought. I kept my face neutral. "When are you planning to leave?" "Tonight. Brianna's picking us up in an hour." I looked at my kids. They were trying to pretend this was normal, like if they stayed quiet enough, nothing would change. "Good luck," I said. He froze and turned to me. "That's it. Good luck. You're not even going to fight for your family." "My family," I repeated quietly. "You're leaving me for another woman and taking my kids. What family do you think you're talking about?" He rolled his eyes and went back to packing. I walked into my home office, closed the door, and made a phone call. "Officer Reynolds, this is Shirley Browning. My husband is about to violate his parole. He's leaving the state tonight with our children." I have the address. Here's what Thomas forgot in his excitement about starting over. He's on parole. 18 months ago, he was caught forging prescriptions while working as a dental tech. He thought he was smarter than everyone else. He got lucky. First offense, good lawyer that I paid for. Conditions included no leaving the state without written permission and maintaining a stable residence with the children. I went back into the living room as Brianna's car honked outside. Thomas grabbed the bags. I helped him carry them. I even shook her hand. She looked uncomfortable, like she'd just realized she was stepping into something she didn't understand. They hugged me goodbye. Lily asked why I wasn't coming. I told her I loved her and I'd see her soon. I waited exactly 30 minutes, enough time for them to hit the interstate. Then I made the second call. They just left. Black SUV, heading north. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang. "Officer Reynolds, we have him in custody. Stopped them 40 minutes from the border. The kids are safe. You can pick them up now." As I drove to get my children in the middle of the night, I realized something with terrifying clarity. This wasn't the end of my marriage. This was the beginning of everything he'd tried to outrun, catching up to him all at once. I drove to pick up my kids at midnight with my hands locked tight on the steering wheel, the kind of grip that makes your knuckles ache later. The roads were almost empty, streetlights passing in slow intervals like a countdown. I kept telling myself to breathe, to stay calm, because if I fell apart now, they would feel it. They were already living inside a moment they didn't understand. They needed me steady more than they needed me angry. The CPS worker met me at the intake office, kind-eyed, tired, speaking softly like she knew the difference between panic and danger. She explained that Thomas had been detained, that the children were safe, that because I was the non-offending parent with no criminal history, I could take them home immediately. She didn't ask questions, the way people do when they're hunting for blame. She just wanted the paperwork signed and the kids placed somewhere safe. Lily ran to me the second she saw me. Not crying, just clinging hard, the way kids do when they're trying not to break. Jamie was half asleep, his little face smudged with exhaustion, dragging his stuffed dinosaur like it weighed as much as he did. I knelt down and held them both, pressing my cheek to Lily's hair and feeling my whole body shake with relief I couldn't show. In the car, Jamie fell asleep before we even left the parking lot. Lily stayed awake, quiet in a way that made my chest hurt. She stared out the window as the world passed in dark blurs. After a few minutes, she asked the question I knew was coming, but still wasn't ready for. "Why did the police take Daddy?" I kept my voice gentle. "He broke some rules, sweetheart. Important rules." "Is he in trouble?" "Yes," I said, "big trouble." She went quiet again, then asked something smaller, almost whispered, "Daddy, are you sad?" The truth was complicated. I felt relieved. I felt furious. I felt disappointed in the way you feel when someone proves they were never as safe as you hoped. I felt sad in a distant, mourning a version of life kind of way. But I didn't put all of that on her. I said I was a little sad, but we were going to be okay. That's when she turned her head toward me, eyes reflecting the passing streetlights. "Brianna was weird," she said quietly. My stomach tightened. "What do you mean, baby?" She swallowed like she was choosing her words carefully. "She said we couldn't call you Mommy anymore. She said she was going to be our new mom." It took everything in me not to pull the car over. Rage rose fast and hot, but I kept my voice level because Lily was watching me, waiting to see if the world was about to explode again. "No one will ever replace me as your mom, Lily. Ever." "Good," she said, immediate and sure. "I don't like Brianna." Smart kid. When we got to my mom's house, she was waiting at the door in a robe, eyes wide and fierce, like she was ready to fight the entire world for her grandkids. She hugged them, tucked Jamie into the guest room, and made Lily hot chocolate even though it was after 1 a.m. I stood in her kitchen, staring at the counter, listening to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, trying to process how close I came to waking up without my children in this state. Because the part no one outside my marriage understood was that Thomas wasn't just impulsive, he was legally restrained, and he had been for a while. 18 months ago, he got caught forging prescriptions. He was working as a dental tech and decided he could play pharmacist. He wrote fake scripts for painkillers, sold them to friends, and acted like it was a hustle instead of a felony. He got caught when a pharmacist noticed the same dentist's signature didn't match across multiple prescriptions. The judge could have buried him. Instead, he got lucky. First offense, sympathy, a stayed sentence, 2 years probation, 18 months parole, and the kind of conditions that sound simple until someone like Thomas decides they don't apply to him anymore. Monthly check-ins with Officer Reynolds, random drug tests, maintaining employment and stable residence, no leaving the state without written permission, no involving minors in any violation. If he stayed clean and compliant, he could have gotten early termination in 6 months. Reynolds even praised his progress last month. I remember him saying Thomas was doing well, that he seemed committed to rebuilding. I believed it because I wanted to. I wanted to believe the man sitting next to me in those meetings was the same man coming home to our kids. That belief evaporated the moment he packed their tablets like it was a vacation. By morning, the calls started. Not from Thomas, from his mother. She called my phone, screaming like I was the criminal. She said I set him up, that I ruined his life, that a good wife would have stopped him instead of reporting him. She said the kids belonged with their father and that I was stealing them. I listened long enough to hear the real message underneath her rage. They thought the rules were optional. They thought consequences were something you could talk your way out of if you were loud enough. "No," I told her calmly. "He ruined his own life when he decided the law didn't apply to him." Then I hung up. My lawyer met me that afternoon. Emergency custody paperwork, temporary orders, the first legal steps to make sure he couldn't try again. I sat across from my attorney while he explained that Thomas was facing a parole violation hearing and potential additional charges, attempted custodial interference, child endangerment for involving the kids during a violation, and whatever happened during the stop that the officer hadn't told me yet. That last part came later. Apparently, Thomas didn't go quietly. When officers pulled them over, he started screaming about rights, trying to keep the kids from being separated from him. And when Reynolds moved to secure the situation, Thomas shoved him. Resisting arrest, assault on a peace officer, each one another brick in the wall he was building around himself. I learned that detail the same way I learned most things that week, through someone else's anger. His mother called again, louder, claiming Reynolds lied, claiming the police targeted him, claiming I'd called them because I was jealous and bitter. My lawyer told me to stop answering, document everything, forward it all, let the system do what it does best when it's fed truth consistently. That night, Lily asked if Daddy was coming home soon. I told her he needed to go to a grown-up timeout for breaking big rules. She nodded slowly, absorbing it with that painful childhood logic where consequences still make sense, even if the adults don't. Then she asked if it was a long time out. "Pretty long, baby," I said. She looked down at her hands, fiddling with the edge of her blanket. "Did he do something really bad?" "He made bad choices," I said carefully. She hesitated, then said something so quietly it almost didn't sound real, like when he was taking those pills. My heart stopped. What pills, honey? The ones he kept in his drawer, she said. He told me they were special vitamins. He said not to tell you because you'd get mad. For a second, I couldn't speak. My 7-year-old knew. She'd been carrying a secret like it was normal, and Thomas had trained her to keep it from me. That wasn't just betrayal, that was danger. I called my lawyer immediately. He told me to schedule Lily with a child psychologist as soon as possible, to document the disclosure properly, to protect her, and to protect our case. Another nail in Thomas's custody coffin, he said, but the way he said it made me realize how far past normal we already were. By the end of that week, life had become a cycle of school drop-offs, therapy appointments, legal meetings, and the kind of quiet exhaustion that doesn't feel dramatic until you realize you've been holding your breath for days. My mom stepped in like a wall, handling dinners and laundry, and letting me cry in the car where the kids couldn't see. My boss gave me flexibility I didn't deserve but desperately needed. And in the middle of all that, something unsettling happened. The house felt calmer, no eggshells, no wondering where Thomas really was, no pretending everything was fine for the kids. Single parenting was hard, but it was easier than co-parenting with someone who lived like rules were for other people. The parole violation hearing was coming, the custody hearing after that. I thought the worst part was already behind us. I was wrong. The parole violation hearing happened a week later, and it felt less like a legal proceeding and more like watching someone argue with gravity. Thomas sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit that still didn't seem real to him, like this was a misunderstanding he could charm his way out of if he talked long enough. He had a public defender now. He couldn't afford the lawyer I'd paid for the first time around. That detail alone said more than any testimony could. His attorney tried to paint the situation as confusion, a misunderstanding, claimed Thomas believed he had permission to travel for a family emergency. The prosecutor shut that down quickly. There was no emergency documented, no request for permission, no call, no email. He wasn't visiting. He was leaving, permanently. And he had taken minor children with him while doing it. Officer Reynolds testified next. Calm, professional, factual. He described my call, the vehicle stop, the discovery of the children in the back seat, and the moment Thomas became combative. That part hadn't made it into the police report summary I'd seen. Thomas screamed about his rights, tried to block the officers from opening the back door, shoved Reynolds, and had to be restrained. Resisting arrest, assault on a peace officer, each charge stacking neatly on top of the parole violation like bricks. Then Thomas took the stand. That's where it unraveled completely. First, he said he didn't know he wasn't allowed to leave the state. The judge raised an eyebrow. Second, he said he thought he had verbal permission. Reynolds stated clearly that no such permission existed and that all approvals had to be written. Third, Thomas pivoted and claimed I had tricked him into leaving. The judge stopped him mid-sentence. Are you suggesting your wife forced you to leave the state with your girlfriend? He hesitated, then said I manipulated the situation, that I knew he wanted to leave and didn't stop him. Did she encourage you to leave? No. Did she threaten you if you didn't leave? No. Did she force you to pack the children's belongings? No. Then how exactly did she trick you? He had no answer. He just stared at the table like it might save him. The judge's voice was flat when she spoke again. Reporting a crime is not entrapment. It is a civic duty. Parole revoked. Remainder of sentence to be served. 18 months. Additional charges to be evaluated separately. Thomas's mother stood up in the gallery and started yelling about injustice until she was escorted out. Thomas didn't look at me once. After the hearing, his attorney pulled me aside and said Thomas wanted to discuss custody arrangements. I actually laughed. Not loudly, just a short, disbelieving sound. What custody? He's going to prison for at least 2 years. He still has parental rights, the attorney said carefully. For now. Supervised visitation once he's eligible. If he's eligible, I replied, I'm filing for full custody with no visitation until he completes his sentence and undergoes a psychological evaluation. The attorney called it harsh. I called it necessary. The circus didn't end in the courtroom. It moved online. Thomas's sister, Marissa, started a Facebook page titled Justice for Thomas. She painted me as an abusive wife who weaponized the legal system against a loving father. The posts were dramatic and vague, full of words like control and alienation. The support lasted about 12 hours. People started asking questions. When Marissa explained that Thomas was on parole and tried to leave the state with his girlfriend and the kids, the comments shifted. One person wrote, "So he's a felon who tried to take his kids across state lines to live with his side piece, and you want us to feel sorry for him." The page disappeared by morning. Then the letters started. Thomas was allowed to write from jail. The first one was 4 pages long and made my skin crawl. I was a monster for calling his parole officer. His girlfriend was his true love. The kids needed their father. He was going to sue for full custody when he got out. God would judge me. I handed the letter to my lawyer without reading it twice. He added it to the file and told me it helped our case. No remorse, no accountability, just threats. The kids were doing as well as could be expected. They asked about their dad. I kept my explanations simple and age-appropriate. Lily accepted them with a quiet maturity that broke my heart. Jamie followed her lead. Kids are resilient, people say, and they are, but that doesn't mean they aren't hurt. It just means they keep moving anyway. The therapy appointment for Lily confirmed what I already feared. She told the psychologist about the pills, about being told to keep secrets, about feeling scared when voices got loud. The therapist used words like emotional burden and inappropriate responsibility. My lawyer used words like devastating for the custody case. Meanwhile, Brett showed up at my door. Not angry, not threatening, just pathetic. He said he had no idea Thomas was on parole. He said Thomas told him we were separated, that I was emotionally abusive, that I controlled the money. None of it was true. Brett looked sick as the lies collapsed one by one. When I asked how long they'd been together, he said 4 months. 4 months while I was driving Thomas to parole check-ins and holding our family together. I told Brett to run. He did. I never saw him again. By the time the custody hearing approached, the narrative had flipped completely. Thomas wasn't the victim of a vindictive wife. He was a man who had broken the law, endangered his children, lied to everyone in his orbit, and still believed consequences were optional. I thought that was the bottom. It wasn't. The custody hearing was scheduled 2 weeks after the parole revocation, and by then the story had grown teeth. My lawyer walked in with a binder thick enough to bend the table, full of police reports, parole records, therapy notes, jail letters, and screenshots from the now-deleted Facebook campaign. Thomas appeared by video link from county, orange jumpsuit, jittery, already irritated before anything began. His mother sat in the gallery like a coiled spring, whispering to anyone who would listen. His new lawyer tried to frame me as the villain, suggesting I orchestrated his imprisonment to steal the children. The judge stopped him mid-sentence and asked a simple question. Did Mrs. Browning force your client to leave the state? The lawyer pivoted to emotional manipulation. The judge asked again, yes or no? No. Did she force him to resist arrest? No. Did she instruct him to involve the children in a parole violation? No. The argument deflated in real time. Then Thomas lost control. On the screen, he leaned forward and started yelling about corruption, about how the system protects abusive spouses, about how he had to save his kids. The bailiff muted him. The judge's voice didn't rise. She issued her ruling calmly. Full legal and physical custody to me. Supervised visitation only after completion of sentence. Parenting classes. Psychological evaluation. Drug and alcohol assessment. No overnights for a minimum of 1 year post-release. Child support to be deducted from prison wages. Thomas kept shouting, even muted. They removed him from the video room. His mother stood up and screamed about appeals until she was escorted out. His lawyer quietly told mine he'd be withdrawing from the case. I thought the chaos would taper off after that. It didn't. It mutated. A week later, Thomas's girlfriend's ex-wife showed up at my door with a box. She said she found it in the back of a truck and thought it belonged to my husband. Clothes, jewelry, perfume, photos, and a tablet. She apologized for the intrusion, said she'd just finalized her divorce. Apparently, Thomas's girlfriend hadn't been honest about her own life either. I thanked her and handed the tablet to my lawyer. He advised me not to open it myself. We did it together. The emails inside read like a confession written in real time, plans to escape, messages with a dealer from before Thomas's arrest, threads with other men who believed they were the future, and then the one that made the room tilt. a conversation from 6 months earlier discussing a pregnancy timeline and child support. The dates lined up too neatly to ignore. My son was 5. The math landed like a punch. I threw up in my lawyer's bathroom and then sat on the floor until the shaking passed. We ordered a paternity test immediately and told no one. I went home and hugged my kids, my heart lodged in my throat. I looked at Jamie and tried not to search his face for proof. He had my eyes, people said. But did he? The waiting became its own form of torture. Meanwhile, jail wasn't going well for Thomas. He picked fights, claimed he was a political prisoner, told people I was connected to the police. He was put in segregation. Phone calls were reduced. His mother called me with demands. Put money on his commissary. Bring the kids. Write letters saying I forgive him. Drop the case. I didn't answer. I documented. Then his sister reached out privately. She said she needed to tell me something before it got worse. We met for coffee. She admitted Thomas had been stealing from their parents for years, refinancing their house to pay for lawyers, inventing business ideas that never existed. Now they were talking about grandparent rights. They planned to claim I was unfit and take the kids. I thanked her for the warning and forwarded everything to my lawyer. Delusion, it turned out, ran in the family. The DNA results came back on a Tuesday morning. Jamie was mine. Relief knocked the air out of me so hard I had to sit down. I cried in my car and then wiped my face before school pickup because joy can be just as loud as fear. That relief didn't erase the next blow. A letter arrived addressed to my children. My lawyer intercepted it first, as instructed. Inside, Thomas wrote that I was keeping them apart because I was mean, that when he got out they would run away together, that they should keep it secret. Reading it felt like ice down my spine, a parent trying to recruit children into a future kidnapping from behind bars. We filed immediately. Attempted parental alienation, psychological manipulation of minors, threatening abduction. My lawyer said the evidence was strong enough to try for termination of parental rights. I didn't celebrate, I didn't feel vindicated, I felt tired in a way that only comes after you realize you've been protecting your children from danger you didn't know existed. The termination hearing was scheduled a month later, and by then the story had stopped being shocking and started being inevitable. Thomas appeared by video again, thinner, more agitated, wearing the same orange jumpsuit, like it was a uniform he still refused to accept. His lawyer this time was court-appointed, careful and restrained, the kind of attorney who knows when damage control is the only move left. He advised Thomas to show remorse, to take responsibility, to promise change. Thomas did none of that. When it was his turn to speak, he launched into a rant about how I stole his children, how the system was corrupt, how his girlfriend was his soulmate and they were going to build a real family when he got out. He swore he would never stop fighting me. He said I manipulated everything, that I ruined his life. The judge let him talk longer than I expected, maybe because she wanted him to finish hanging himself with his own words. Then she asked one question. Mrs. Browning, do you take any responsibility for your current situation? He didn't hesitate. I'm a victim of circumstance and a vindictive ex-wife. That was it. The judge terminated his parental rights. Complete severance. No visitation, no legal standing, nothing. Thomas screamed so loudly they had to remove him from the video room again. His mother fainted in the courtroom. His father walked out without saying a word. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. 2 weeks later, I got a call from the prison. Thomas was in the hospital. He'd been hiding a pregnancy for months. The stress and fighting caused complications. The father wasn't his girlfriend's ex-husband. It wasn't anyone I recognized. It was a correctional officer. An investigation was already underway. The baby would go into foster care at birth. Thomas's parents called me begging to take the baby. They said it was my children's sibling. I said no. Not because I was cruel, but because I was done being the person who cleaned up disasters I didn't create. His sister texted me that day saying she was finished, completely finished, and then moved across the country without telling anyone where. Life, strangely, got quieter after that. The kids stayed in therapy. Lily made the honor roll. Jamie started soccer and talked about goals like they were magic spells. I got promoted at work, bought a house in a better school district, started dating again. Slowly, carefully, a single dad from Lily's school who understood patience and boundaries. We took it one coffee at a time. The kids stopped asking about Thomas. Their therapist said they were processing well. We removed his photos from the house, not to erase history, but to give them space to breathe. Fear doesn't live here anymore. I ran into Thomas's girlfriend's ex-husband at a hardware store months later. He looked older, worn down, living in a studio apartment and driving a 15-year-old car. He asked about the kids. I told him they were thriving. He apologized. I accepted it and let him walk away. On Lily's 8th birthday, she pulled me aside during her party. "Daddy, I'm happy," she said. "Not birthday happy, all the time happy. It used to be scary sometimes, but it's not anymore." I promised her it never would be again. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat on the porch and thought about how a single sentence changed everything. "I'm taking the kids to live with my boyfriend." He thought he was starting over. He thought the rules didn't apply. He thought there would be no consequences. I didn't ruin his life. I refused to let him ruin ours. The rest was just cause and effect. I'm closing this chapter now. The kids and I are free, really free, and we're never looking back.